This podcast is brought to you by The Shift.
It's story time.
Hi, I'm Claire. I go by Clisare on the internet, and welcome to the Storytime with Clisare podcast, the podcast where guests come on and they tell me their stories. And this week I have with me Jared. Hello, Jared.
Hi, Clisare. How are we doing today?
I'm good. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and let them know where to find you on the internet?
Sure. My name is Jared. I come from Parrot Gaming Productions. You can find me on YouTube or all major podcasts. So I do a little fun stuff on YouTube as well too. So just Parrot Gaming Productions, you'll find me.
And I will put all the links down in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on the audio platforms. But you have a story or a kind of set of stories for us today.
Yeah, I spent 6 years active duty in the Air Force, or as a lot of people like to call it, the Chair Force, just because we have AC and higher quality tents than usually everybody else does. But I had some fun, exciting moments where I almost got blown up a couple of times and almost got left on some random airfields. So that was pretty fun. So for a lot of people that don't know what a flyaway security team basically is, we are pretty much air marshals for C-130s or C-5s. And it was just kind of funny because sometimes we would land in these very remote locations. And sometimes the loadmasters, who are the guys in the back that would tell the pilots, hey, we're all clear to take off, they would forget that we were there. And one time the plane started to pull away as we were sitting in the back of the airfield. And now, mind you, this is just a random airfield that people don't secure. So we would have been randomly left in the middle of absolutely nowhere in Iraq. It was pretty fun. It was pretty awesome. And then we landed in some other random airfield when we were taking some VIP out for some location or whatever, and we're standing around the plane just kind of hanging out doing nothing. And we talked to the major, who's the pilot, and he's like, hey, what are we doing here, man? And like, well, how long are we going to be sitting here? The pilot's like, I don't know, we're just waiting for some VIP or whatever. And he calls up somebody in the sat phone, and he's like, oh, we're going to be here for like 8 or 10 hours. Now it's just me and my buddy securing this plane in the middle of absolutely nowhere, surrounded by open nothingness, a sniper's paradise. And we're just like, all right, this is gonna be fun. And we're just kind of chilling, and then like an hour later the pilot just goes, excuse the language here, but goes, fuck this, we're done. And we're like, what? He's like, we're leaving, get on the plane. And then we just left the senator or whoever it was just there to defend for himself, and we flew back home. So it was just kind of great. Just instead of sitting there for like 8 or 10 hours, we were just like, yeah, we're gone, and we left them. So
And what was the repercussions of that? Like, did you get in trouble?
No, that was the pilot's decision. I was E4, and I was the E4, so I was very low ranked. The pilot was, I think, a colonel at that time or a major, and I don't know what happened. I never saw him again, but I think he was done with his rotation, but we just left. I think he maybe got scolded or something like that, but it was just funny that, he's a senator. What are you supposed to do? Like, usually you wait hand and foot on those guys, and he didn't want to wait. So we bounced. There was one time I was in Afghanistan, actually. I was talking to my mom on the phone when we actually got mortared. And the mortar actually hit the generator right in front of where I was at.
What does mortared mean?
When they send bombs over into the base, when the Taliban would... Not really. Well, I think it may have been a rocket, or I don't know. They're really bad usually when they aim these little rockets that they send on over. And this time it had actually hit a generator right in front of where I was talking to my mom. If it would have gone a few inches either way, it would have landed. And what's fun about the places that we were at is that they're very thin plywood, pretty much like a trailer. So it would have ripped right through it, and it would have hit all of us who were actually on the phones at that time. Pretty interesting to be talking to my mom at that time, and she's just like, oh honey, what's that loud explosions in the background? It's like, oh, that's just them being funny out on the aerial gunnery range. No worries, mom, but hey, my sergeant's talking to me. I gotta go check something out with him. I'll be back in a little bit. She had no idea. I finally actually told her like a week ago, and she kind of freaked out a little bit. So yeah, that was just some of the dumb stuff that happened.
Yeah. So how long did you serve for?
I spent 6 years active duty. I did 4 tours and 1 TDY.
And you said you were the Marine
Air Force.
Air Force.
Yeah.
So what was your job in the Air Force?
I was basically a cop. They call it security forces, but the way that I just dumb it down is I was a cop for the Air Force. I did so many different things, from protecting our assets to actually arresting people to writing really bad tickets to just being a gate guard. So kind of did it all.
Tickets, really?
Yep, I wrote tickets to people in Afghanistan for speeding on base. It was stupid. It was really tough. I remember one of my sergeant majors, because we worked with the Army, the sergeant major was like, "Hey, stop that truck. He's not wearing a seatbelt." So I roll up, and it is the commander of the Special Forces group of the Army. Like, he was the commander of the Army Special Forces. And I'm like, "Sir, I have to write you a ticket. My sergeant major says I have to give you a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt." He's like, "It's okay, airman. I know where you sleep." I was like, "Oh, God." So yeah, I wrote him a ticket. I handed it to him and I was like, "All right, have a good day." I saluted him, and it was just kind of funny because we did a lot of dumb stuff like that. It was like it was horrible. Just, I mean, pulling people over for speeding or going too slow. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
And did you weren't a pilot yourself, were you not?
No. Yeah, that's a major misconception, is whenever I say I'm Air Force, a lot of people are, "Oh, what'd you fly?" I didn't fly anything.
I definitely kind of assumed that Air Force was like the name for the pilots in the army, essentially. That's kind of what I always thought it was.
Yeah, well, we did fun little side fact. I think it was 1945 or maybe early, I don't know, but the Army actually instituted the Air Force, and then we branched off from the Army right around that time frame, and it became the Air Force, and that's when we became what we were. And just like a whole lot of changes happened over the next couple of years. So,
And so you said Afghanistan. So were the army in Afghanistan and the Air Force? And if so, what's like the difference?
yeah, the Army, Air Force, I think there were some Marines. I know we served with some Brits, some Egyptians. The Egyptians had their own compound, which was really cool. There were a lot of nations. This was actually in Baghdad. We were actually in Baghdad, not Baghdad, Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. And so a lot of people were there. The difference is really kind of what your role is. A lot of what you would think is traditional. You know, the Army handles a lot of the off-base stuff. The Marines are the boot kickers, the door kickers. They're the guys that go onto the forward operating bases. They go out to the little places all over outside where they basically are their own security and their own team. The other host nations sometimes help us out with base security. It's a lot of what you think of. You know, the Army, they're the main guys and gals out there. They really kind of run the base. The Air Force, they fly around, do whatever they have to do. They maintain the jets. And then, like, we would just when we were in Bagram, we basically joined up with the Army to help with policing the entire base. Because if you ever get a chance to like watch a documentary or look at what Bagram was basically a little city in and of itself. You know, you take one of the medium-sized towns in America, that's pretty much what it looks like. You know, it was pretty insane, but with a giant airfield and planes taking off all the time. So.
And so what made you finish up, or is it just a time thing? You finished your time?
Yeah, so one of the things that happened out there was I developed athletic induced asthma. So the harder I worked out, the harder it became to breathe. A lot of it came from the burn pits. I think a lot of it had to do with I was never one to complain when my sergeant would ask me to go burn secret documents. So he'd always call me up on the radio, no matter where I was, and just, "Hey, Jared, I need you to burn these," because I never complained. So I was like, "Cool, yeah, I get to run to the burn pit and burn shit." I mean, burn stuff. Sorry. And
no, you can curse on this podcast.
Oh, okay, okay. And so I never complained about it. And so the more I went to the burn pit, the more I was able to actually go out there and investigate stuff where people like would leave their frag grenades or their smoke grenades or even ammunition. And because I never complained, I always got to do a lot of fun stuff, quote unquote. And the more time I spent in the burn pit, the harder it became to breathe, the harder I worked out. And so at the end of the 6 years, I was starting to fail my PT tests, my physical fitness tests. And they're like, "We got to let you go. You can't re-enlist." So.
Oh yeah. So it is a time thing. Like you would have wanted to re-enlist for another 2 years or something, is it?
Yeah, and they were going to send me to Italy to work with nukes and work at a nuke base. But
that would have been cool.
Nukes is a whole other realm of crazy. Like, you know, when they say shit rolls downhill with how bad things get.
Yeah.
The nukes are 10 times worse. 10 times worse. They're way more strict. If you fail, like, you have like 6 months or a year to get ready for the next one, more training. And it's just nukes were a nightmare. And they're like, yeah, you're going to go protect nukes in Italy. I was like, yeah, no, I'm dipping. And they're like, you can't even reenlist. I was like, all right, no, that's cool. I don't want to go to Italy.
This has worked out.
hmm Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So just, do you know what the Blue Falcons do? Or not Blue Falcons,
No,
the Blue Angels.
No, I've never heard of them.
The Blue Angels are an Air Force group of pilots that perform like the stunts and stuff like that. They usually fly over stadiums or what have you. I'm not sure if you're from Ireland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the Irish Army has anything like that, but basically they're these fancy pilots that perform stunts. The Saudis.
We definitely have like a defense force.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're a neutral country, I don't know that we would have that sort of thing.
A lot of it is just like a patriotic display, like it's just, oh, patriotism, hoorah. They'll leave behind like blue trails as they fly by. They make little cool gestures. They fly over stadiums before football games or soccer games or anything.
Yeah, I feel like that's like an American thing.
Yeah,
I feel like that's not a outside of America thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's never happened here. Like we do have an air show like once a year, but no, we wouldn't have a thing over football stadiums or any of that jazz.
Yeah, it's very American. And we went to play some war games with some Saudis, the Russians, and a couple other countries. And I linked up with the Utah National Guard, and
You'll have to explain to me what playing war games means.
Basic, like when you play like Call of Duty or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but basically with jets. So they basically go up in their jets and fight each other, quote unquote, with like fake missiles and stuff like that.
Why? For practice or?
Practice. Well, like we're all allies. So like they just hang out with each other and they're like, hey, we're going to teach you how to dogfight better.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, we do that. We have these giant, I forget what the one in Alaska is, but it's like huge. But yeah, like we have war games all the time.
Wow.
But we linked up with the Saudis and went to a couple other places. And it was funny because the Saudis every day would do their Blue Angels over us all the time and try to impress us with and they were pretty cool because they'd have like two guys that would streak red, two guys would streak green, and then two guys that would streak like white. And they'd make these fancy little patterns over the places that we were staying. And like, they were just trying to impress us. And then our ace, who was the best pilot we had, which was the colonel, he's like, he went up, he fought like two or three guys. It's like, hey, Colonel, how'd you do? He's like, I fucking smoked them. I was like, oh, that was easy, huh? He's like, yeah. He's like, I fought their ace. They suck. I was like, good to know. Yeah, there was another one in Afghanistan that was kind of funny. A little small thing that I should say before we get started here. If you're around a unexploded ordnance or an unexploded bomb or something like that, you never want to be on like a walkie-talkie or a cell phone or anything like that, because apparently the frequencies can set it off. Now we have truck radios in our trucks that we're driving around, and I was driving around and we got mortared, and so I'm just trying to make sure the perimeter is okay on my side. And I roll up to Tower 2 Alpha, which is just one of the outposts on the base that looks out over the perimeter so we can see if anybody's coming to attack us. And they're like, hey, Jared, go to Tower 2 Alpha. Check out where there's an unexploded ordnance. I was like, I'm at Tower 2 Alpha. Where is it? They're like, it's marked by a chem light. I kind of look to my left, and about 10 feet from me is a chem light and a big hole where it's supposed to be. Now, mind you, I'm within that radius of where the bombs could go off if I'm on a walkie-talkie or something like that. So I pretty much jacked it in reverse, and they keep calling for me to see if I'm okay. I was like, hey, I was within the area. Please be quiet so that this bomb doesn't blow up. So it was just kind of interesting.
Thanks again, Jared, and I shall see you in the next one.
It's been a
Bye.
pleasure.
This podcast was brought to you by The Shift. For more like this, check out theshift.ie.